Good afternoon, everyone. Jason here. Today is October 28th, and I wanted to share with you an ES trade that we took in here today. So if you've been following along here over the last several days, you'll know that we were on quite the streak here. We've had 4 days of trades that have ES trades that have been in excess of $1,000. 3 of those days, they were in excess of $2,000. And today we had an ES trade that was right at $4,000. So I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes with you here talking to you about that trade and what we were seeing as we were going through it. Also, I think it's important to note that I was down a considerable amount going into it. You'll notice that I was down going into that final trade. I'd been kind of whipped around a little bit on the ES trying to find the location to get in. I was trying to get short on the CL, and I had taken a stop over there as well. So it was a bumpy ride to begin the session with. There is no question about that. And when I do end up showing you these trades here in just a few minutes, what you're going to see is that I am down ticks. You'll see that on the price ladder, right? The price ladders are shown throughout the entire trading day, and you get to see those price ladders through the entire session, etc. And so when I show you where we get into this trade, you'll be able to see that we were down heading into this opportunity here today. So one thing that we do every day is we provide a trade plan as we get into the trading day, and this trade plan looks like this, right? So here are all the October trade plans, and of course we have all the way up through the beginning of October, and of course we have the previous months as well. And so one of the things that we were talking about is that we had just broken inside the developing value area for the ES, and so the bigger picture idea, we were trading below the developing value area and in last month's value area. And so one of the things that we talked about was that the market had been rotational, but that the market in the overnight session had certainly been bearish. And so one of the things that we looked at as we were looking at that idea is we had talked about the fact that the 100% of the overnight trade, so this represents the overnight session, this represents today's session, 100% of the overnight session had been spent below settlement. Right. Also, we said that the market was going to gap in this RTH session. This is going to be easier to see on this chart here. So let me move that and bring this chart over in front of you here. This is the RTH session profiles. So this was the previous day's profile RTH session. This was the RTH session from Monday, and you can see here that we gapped the open prices here. We knew we were going to gap considerably lower, and we did. And so one of the things that occurs is that when 100% of the overnight trade is below settlement like it was, and you have that big gap, if the market doesn't try to get into closing that gap right away, and there's not energy to try to close that gap and to get up into settlement, then you are looking for the market to sell. And that's exactly what our mindset was walking into this today. We did open and tried to rally just a little bit, but all of the indications here were pretty favorable to the downside. So with that being said, one of the things you'll notice here is this 20-period average. When a market is trending like it is here, and it's below the developing value area, which is this purple cloud, the market will come back and test into this 20-period average. And it did it a number of times here, right? Pull back, test, pull back, or sorry, sell off, pull back and test it, pull back and test, etc., all the way down. And when we got into the open here today, we opened up right on top of one of our market maker levels, the RTH signal. And so I was attempting to get short in this area here today with the anticipation that we were going to continue to push down lower. What ultimately happened is I took a few stop outs in this area up here, right? And so if you've been following us here for any length of time, you know that I'm a cut the losing trade short, let the winning trade run kind of guy. And so I am going to take some stops as if the market is not going in my favor. What I ended up doing here is we got into this cloud, right? I ended up taking a short right here at this 1/2 standard deviation off the volume weighted average price at 27.50 right here. And this is where you're going to see us get in. Is this 27.50 mark, right? The idea was that the market was coming up into this zone and really weren't getting much in the way of energy to get up through that. That time frame there is about 8:45, and I'm going to show you this here at around 8:45. You'll see the delta beginning to try and make a turn right up here, right? So this is right in that same time frame at 8:45. And so the market is beginning to make that turn right up into this area here, right? So market rallies, and then the delta begins to make the turn. And that was our opportunity to look and try to get short right up in this area, right? 845, the delta begins to turn. We were looking at this 1/2 standard deviation and the pullback there. And really the rest, as they say, is history. I ended up with a 40-point move. The market comes down. We use this idea of our market maker levels, kick the signal, pay the target. Market comes down, sells off down into this, came down a little bit deeper here to this 76 quarter, and I get pulled back at around 87 quarter on the pullback. So again, the entry here was 27.5, and we took this out at 40 ES points times 2 lots, right? So again, this trade had a 2-point stop on it. We had a small 2-point stop and a 40-point winner that ends up being a 20 to 1 reward to risk ratio. Now this trade lasted just about an hour. And so what I do when I show you this here, we're going to go back and look at this trade. You're going to see exactly where I get in. You're going to hear the stop location. You're going to hear me talk about a target. And then from there, I'm going to take the balance of that trade. We're going to chop it up into pieces, speed up the tape, put some music behind it, and you can see where I get out. And then what I want you to do is make sure you pay attention to the top of the price ladder so that you can see how we ended up the session. Also, you'll see that we were down ticks going into that trade as well. So all of those things together going to give you a really good sense of how this trade played out. We did this trade in front of a live trading audience like we do every day. And again, this was our 5th consecutive trading day with the trade in excess of $1,000. In fact, 3 of the 4 days were above $2,000, and this trade happened to be right around $4,000. So without much further ado, I'm going to let you watch this OTG trade of the day. In at 27.5, stop is 29.5 on the stop.